Not met me, and I think I've met almost all of you. My name is Allie Williams. I'm the Executive Director of the Corporate Responsibility Association and part of the Shared Expertise team. Good morning and welcome again. Our next session will focus on continuing conversations on responsible freight supply chain. Our panel will look closely at how a freight shipper works with logistics and transportation providers to provide benchmark performance and optimize mode and carrier selection while implementing strategies and technologies to reduce emissions. A focal point of this panel includes carbon accounting and reporting to CDP. They are Buddy Polovic, Smartway Transport Partnership, U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, Bill Bleem, Senior Vice President, Fleet Services, NFI Industries, and Gary Marsuka, I think I got that right, close enough, Senior Director, Fleet Services at Bimbo Bakeries, USA. Gentlemen.
Thanks, Allie. Good morning. I know we're tight on time, so I'm going to hit the road here while Bill's getting mic'd up in the back. Buddy Polovic with U.S. EPA Office of Transportation and Air Quality, and Bill and Gary and I are going to talk to you today about where the rubber meets the road. This is your freight transportation supply chain. And unless you are a banker or insurer or investor, chances are most of you in this room are probably in a business where you're making or selling or shipping stuff. And unless you have your own trucks and trains and planes to move that stuff, you're probably hiring somebody like Bill to move your freight for you. But those investors, lenders, and insurers should pay attention also because there's some important information for you to learn here today. So what we're going to talk about, let me grab the clicker here, is I'd like to just kind of paint a macro level picture of what the freight transportation footprint is. And if there's one thing I'd like for you to walk away from today, that's with the understanding that you as shippers of freight have a tremendous amount of control and opportunities to reduce your freight footprint by becoming more efficient using operational strategies and technologies, working with gentlemen like we have here today. And this can make you a better corporate citizen and potentially and likely also reduce cost because carbon is a leading indicator of operational efficiency. By working to understand it and reduce it, you're going to be improving all of those factors. So we'll talk about why you should take a closer look at those factors. And then I'd like to give you some ideas about what you can do to drive supply chain responsibility in your own corporate footprints. Then Gary's going to talk about how the corner baker became a multinational corporate citizen, and then we'll introduce you to Bill, a transportation services provider that's doing some really innovative things that we can all learn from. And then hopefully have some time for some quick discussion. Our nation's transportation footprint is massive. We collectively create over 1.8 trillion metric tons of carbon emissions on an annual basis in our transportation sector. About 2/3 of this is from passenger transportation, but over 1/4 is from freight transport. And freight transport is actually growing much more rapidly than passenger transport. So this is a challenge for policymakers. And why is this? Clearly it's because of you and me and our businesses as consumers, our households. The trucking sector delivers the goods that we all depend on, everything that you have in this room here. And we consume a tremendous amount of freight services on an annual basis in our country. Over 20 billion tons of freight on an annual basis, over 63 tons per person each year. And I know it doesn't seem like it, you don't see 63 tons showing up on your doorstep, but one way or another, we're all a part of that. So this is clearly a cornerstone of our nation's economy, very important, but there are opportunities to improve efficiencies. So let's take a look at your footprint. Probably most of you in this room are familiar with the GHG protocol, and they've done a really good job of kind of framing the three scopes of your footprint. We won't talk about scope 2. Scope 1 would be companies like Gary's that own their own equipment, and that becomes a part of their scope 1 footprint, which they're working to reduce as a Smartway Transport partner. But again, for most of you, you have upstream and downstream scope 3 footprints associated with your transportation emissions. And this is not just CO2. It includes oxides of nitrogen and particulate matter, which have localized public health impacts. black carbon, a short-lived climate pollutant, and other emissions which are attributed to that freight shipping. So again, by working to reduce those emissions, you're also identifying ways to reduce cost. So here's why you should take a closer look beyond the cost. It's because your consumers and your customers are demanding greater corporate citizenship and accountability. Those investors, lenders, and insurers are looking to see if companies are addressing climate risk, or if they are assessing business opportunities in a changing marketplace and a climate-constrained world. Energy prices are keeping all of us on our toes. We've had a dip in energy prices lately, but the smart business leaders know that the volatility of energy prices and the dependence in the supply chain on that energy will keep you on your toes. In trucking, fuel continues to be the greatest expense. And then for the multinationals that are globalizing their supply chains, you're competing, obviously, on a global stage, and you may be subject to reporting in other regions like the EU on carbon emissions. So what can you do to drive sustainability in your supply chain and become a more responsible corporate citizen? And this actually kind of parallels what the gentleman from Robiscon was talking about yesterday in the DJSI. It's really this process of continuous improvement that begins first with using tools and methodologies to measure your supply chain footprint. The EPA Smart Way Transport program, which both of our friends here are partners in, are using these tools to actually measure their carbon and other emissions. You can use those tools to benchmark your performance and compare performance to yourself on an annual basis or against your peers. You can use the Smart Way data to do CDP and GRI and other CSR reporting because it's credible, validated data, which many of our 3,000 Smart Way partners are now doing with CDP and GRI. And then you work to actually look at where the rubber hits the road and what you can do to innovate your operations. We promote a wide range of operational strategies, technologies, and practices which can help to improve efficiency, demonstrate that by measuring, and continue that process of continuous improvement. So that's what I'd like to have you walk away with today. So what I'd like to do now is introduce you to Gary, who will talk about Bimbo Bakeries USA, and there's going to be a little back and forth here between our two friends. So, Gary?
Good morning, everybody. Just introduce you to Bimbo Bakeries, and then I'm going to let Bill, and I'll circle back with details of what we're doing on sustainability. Bimbo Bakeries USA is its own separate entity. We're owned by Grupo Bimbo, which is global. They're the largest bakery in the world. We're the largest bakery in the United States. I have the entire U.S. operation. I have 7 counterparts across the U.S. I'm going to focus on the U.S. operation. BBU was formed in the early 1990s when Grupo Bimbo entered the U.S. market. At that time, they bought Weston Foods, and then in the last 4 years, we bought Sara Lee. The company has grown through organic growth. U.S. has about 23,000 associates, 60 manufacturing plants across the U.S., and our fleet is comprised of about 6,200 route vans, basically in the 19.5 GVW, and currently about 470 tractors across the U.S. and 3,000 trailers to support that. We do about 50% of our delivery on the route trucks to the store deliveries. The other 50% is independent operators, and on our over-the-road, we do about 50% in-house with our tractor fleet, and we partner up with several companies. NFI is one of the larger companies we partner up with that provides transportation for the other 50% of our product. And I'm not going to go through this, but you'll see the names. When you go down that bread aisle, regardless of what name is on that bag of bread, it's our company that produced it, basically. And like I said, I'll hand it over to Bill, and I will circle back with the detail of what we're doing for sustainability.
So it's kind of a unique situation here with Gary and his product that he needs to get delivered, and NFI. We don't have a product. We are just basically a delivery company. So a delivery company that was founded in 1932. We're a privately held company, and we're currently on 3rd generation that is managing the business today. It was founded on an over-the-road business with 2 trucks in Vineland, New Jersey back in 1932. And we folded that over-the-road business in 2010. It no longer made sense to us because of where we diversified our businesses. So today, we have 8,000 employees. We have 25 million square foot of warehouse space in North America that we operate, soon to be 28 million probably in the next month. We have over 2,000 tractors on the road, over 8,200 trailers on the road. We are an industry sustainability leader. We measure, we know that we are, and we're one of the fastest growing 3PLs in the country. Some of what we do, we have dedicated transportation is probably 40% of our business, where we have our fleet of tractors that we contract with customers like Bimbo Bakeries, where we will deliver their product exclusively to where they need it to go. And distribution is the other big piece of our business, which is that 25 million square foot of warehouse space that we operate. And then you can see on the slide there some other things that we do. The real estate, we actually own probably 70% of that 25 million square foot of warehouse space, and we lease the rest. We have global, we have intermodal, which really plays into our sustainability efforts to, can we reduce our carbon footprint by putting things on rail instead of trucking it across the country. We have a little niche in refrigerated intermodal. And our drayage operations, and we have global. So some of our sustainability issues I'm just going to cover really quick, and then like I said, it's neat with Gary having some of his own fleet, and we can help them reduce their carbon footprint in their supply chain while we're doing it with them as a partner. Some of our initiatives I'll talk very briefly about: natural gas fleets, our asset innovation, and our warehousing and real estate sustainability initiatives that we have going on in there. So we have dabbled so into the natural gas fleets. I'm not sure how familiar everybody is with it. It's a very challenging market right now, but we know that that's the direction that it is going. I believe that in 5 or 6 years from now, it's really going to take off, but we like to be on the leading edge of things. Gary's also doing some natural gas. So we started out 4 years ago in Chino, California with 5 CNG tractors. Then we added in Mount Vernon, Texas, 17 LNG tractors. That all these trucks are still running on the road today. Last year we added 13 tractors in Pottsville, Pennsylvania, CNG tractors, and next month we are putting in service 12 natural gas tractors in Kissimmee, Florida. Our asset innovation, our fleet, driver training, asset optimization, aerodynamics, and equipment configuration. We have been all along. We are constantly testing products. We are constantly training our drivers, trying to improve miles per gallon and configuring the best equipment that we can configure. So everything we run wide base. Most people know them as super single tires, all Smartway approved tires that are low roll-in resistance, improve miles per gallon. We run, everything we buy today is automated manual transmissions. We're trying to take the driver out of the picture of improving MPGs. We run a lot of aerodynamics. The manufacturers are, with the greenhouse gas regulations, they're helping us improve MPGs along the way. We run very tight, that equipment configuration. We run a tighter than normal trailer gap between the tractor and trailer. Causes us a little problem sometime, but we're within 26, 28 inches of the back of the tractor to close that up. As a result of that, for the last 5 years, we've seen 2 to 3% fuel mileage improvement every year. So we are today on our fleet, average across the fleet, we are getting over a mile per gallon better than we were 5 years ago, which is incredible when you look at the amount of reduction of fuel burn, when you look at the reduction of cost. Every tenth of a mile per gallon at today's fuel prices for our companies equal to about $1.1 million a year. So it's huge. Our fleet is all 2010 and newer EPA regulation motors. You see on the bottom of that slide the SmartWay rankings and performance in our reduction in emissions, and what I like to refer to as we have $150,000 air purifiers going down the road, because the air coming out of our tailpipes on our trucks is cleaner than the air going in. So much so that we've taken weight out of our trucks by, everybody remembers the old diesel stacks on the old, with the black smoke coming out the back. We now have car exhaust underneath our trucks where we're just putting the tailpipe right down onto the road because the air is that clean. In our warehousing, some of the initiatives that we're doing, solar panels. Our corporate headquarters in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, I believe it's a 650,000 square foot warehouse, and then we have our offices in that building. If anybody ever flies into Philadelphia Airport, as you come in on your landing, you're going to see solar panels on a building that is our building, and that whole building operates fully off of solar, and we still have some to sell. The kilowatt expense reduction, we do a lot of zone lighting, a lot of motion detector or sensors in our warehouses, turn lights on and off as you walk through the warehouse. We put in a lot of skylights, fluorescent lighting, just a lot of different things to reduce that expense and the use of that electricity. And then recycling, of course, everybody has recycling programs. Some of the things that we look at, and I actually have a stat here that's pretty interesting. I write myself all these notes and then I never look at them. But we changed our shrink wrap on our pallets as they go out. And we did that in 2012, and in 1 year we reduced the amount of plastic wrap used to wrap pallets by 57% by going to a high-performance stretch film. We saved in 1 year 618,499 pounds of stretch film across the company that was eliminated by changing to this high-performance stretch film. Plus, we have lighter pallets going out, which means less trucks. So it's pretty interesting. Well, all the time we're looking at things like this to help us reduce our carbon footprint and in turn help companies like Gary's reduce theirs. And then these slides, I'm not going to, I have two slides here that I'm basically done, but this is some of the stuff that we're constantly doing, and I don't expect you to understand this, but basically what we try to do is optimize our network for delivering Bimbo's products out of their warehouses that we operate by reducing the number of trucks on the road, optimizing routes, finding good backhauls. You know, do we put some stuff on intermodal? Whatever we can do to reduce the amount of trucks on the road to deliver Bimbo's products to the stores so that everybody in the room can buy them, hopefully. And and then the natural gas, Gary's going to talk about his fleet of natural gas, and our strategies align with exactly what he's doing. So,
thanks, Bill. So this statement, you know, the earliest session I heard him talk about partnership, and partnership is the key in alternative fuels because there's a lack of service providers, there's a lack of infrastructure, and I'm going to go into some of those challenges. So I'm not up here saying it's been a 3-year journey that I've been working on alternative fuels, and this is the first year, as I'll show you, that we've put what I consider a significant size fleet into play. But this statement, I've worked with several about 5 large companies comparable to us, similar fleets. And their challenge, if their leadership had this statement that's up here, their challenge would be so much easier because it starts at the top down. This is Daniel Savici's statement. He is the overall president of Grupo Bimbo, the global operation, and it's clear as day. No one wants to lose money, okay? But he has a long-term strategy for sustainability. He's deeply ingrained in that philosophy. 4 of the bakeries in the United States have already been converted on the boiler systems and stuff. And the statement, this was 2 weeks ago, the corporate presentation, the global presentation, he was highlighting the initiative of the company. The United States is the forerunner in these alternative fuel initiatives. So as far as our operation in the United States, by the end of this year, we'll have 45 tractors in operation. On propane side, we'll have 62 route trucks. I'm going to get into, there is no one answer for what alternative fuel. There's hybrids out there, there's electric, there's a bunch of other stuff out there. The most proven technology right now that fits our fleet, as far as the Class 8s, we've seen CNG is the answer. There's LNG out there. Our trips are short hauls. They're day cabs. The driver goes out, he returns back to his home domicile at night. That's why we went down the road of CNG. As far as propane, we're looking on our route trucks. We're also looking at CNG on our route trucks. There is availability in that. I'm going to get into a little bit. There's a big difference, an order of magnitude of a 10 multiplier on the cost of an infrastructure between CNG and propane systems. Next year, we already secured 17 additional tractors in the state of California, 70 more route trucks in Pennsylvania. We applied and secured funding for another 30 route trucks in California for CNG. And on propane, I just got approved. They will be on the road by Q2 of next year in the state of Maryland. One of the things that works so successful is the training, and the next slide will delineate the process. It's not, you're not going to go out today and do it, but you have to put the initiative behind it. What makes everybody comfortable, the 16 tractors that we have on the road since May of this year in California, we've been very pleased with. It's, battles you got to deal with is the drivers. They're very apprehensive. The corporation is very apprehensive. There's issues with diesel and gasoline, okay? Accidents happen all the time, things blow up, okay? They don't make the news. A CNG tractor or a propane truck blows up, it makes the news. So the media really does not do a good job of portraying the real world out there. But when we implement in any of our operations an alternative fuel, the fuel company, we're currently utilizing clean energy. We also work with GAIN. But the fuel company comes out and trains every one of our drivers for that equipment on their fueling system, the safety of the system. The maintenance providers for CNG, they come out, they go through the safety. We've had nothing but, and we have every operation has their 5-10% of the people that are negative, and at the end of these 2-3 hour sessions, and once they get behind that piece of equipment, from driving older equipment and noisy equipment, going to these quiet, so they see that part, the company sees the sustainability and reducing the carbon footprint. The decision for alternative fuels, except for Illinois, we've either secured our own grant money or work with the Penske and the Ryder of the world to secure grant money. I've been on a lot of panels across the U.S. We do not look at it, so no one wants to lose money. But surprisingly, in a lot of the companies that I talk about, they say, well, we service 7 regions also in our sales regions, but fleet, we run the operation. We explain what we're doing and get everybody's buy-in, but we look for a break. If we break even, we're going to switch over to an alternative fuel. There's some wins out there, and the big difference that we do, what I've seen from other companies, is from a fleet perspective, we have to replace trucks. So the justification is you have to replace a truck. Then the decision is, will it be alternative fuel? We justify the alternative fuel separate from replacing the equipment. A lot of companies say, we're going to put a tractor that costs $110,000, diesel that costs $100, without grant money, $170,000. You'll never justify that. And especially in today's world where the delta is different. So the approach we take is totally different. The truck has to be replaced. That's not non-discussion. That's the big nut. Then with grant money, the tractor incremental cost is much reduced. Propane upfit grant money is out there between different states that covers 50% and up to 80% of the upcharge. You have to identify the fueling infrastructure, and I'll talk more on CNG. Certain states like Texas and California, there's a significant fueling infrastructure there. So we look not only short term but long term, and what we do is we roll out where the drivers can fuel up one time in the beginning of their trip, do their trip and come back. That's our phase 1. Our phase 2 is, okay, now we go for the longer runs where they'll have to fuel up en route, and we identify where a site is either today or will be in the near future. Determine which GVW is the right fit for which alternative fuel. We've been buying, upfits versus brand new trucks. 3 years ago, we started buying all gas on our 19.5 route truck delivery, with gas-prepped engines, with the intention that at any point in time, that gives us the opportunity just to convert over to CNG or propane. I put it there, I always say, interrogate suppliers, because one thing, people know me, Bill knows me, I tell it the way it is. Usually they say there's 3 answers to a question. There's 5 answers to a question. So you really have to partner up with your providers who you feel comfortable with. Maintenance providers, we don't do any service, any CNG equipment in-house. It's a significant upcharge up to retrofit your garage. Negotiate fueling options, and then confirm ordinances and regulations. One recommendation is you rely on your partners, but I'm in there, like the state of Pennsylvania, I was in there with the state when they were going through it, because even the state sometimes gives you 5 different answers, and you want to make sure you're covered. The opportunities, lease versus buy. We lease our equipment. I mean, that's our model, but on alternative fuels, it's a big advantage, because basically, it's come a long way from years ago. But it's like, even diesel engines continue to improve. But we're putting the liability on ownership of someone else's piece of equipment in case something does go wrong. It gives us an out. Garage operations costs, propane, not an issue. If you're a gasoline and diesel certified garage, you could do propane, and that's what we do. We service them in-house where we have garages. CNG, it's over $100,000 depending on how big your garage is. We don't want to have that liability inside our facilities. We go to the experts on that. We are in the fleet business, but we're bakers. So wherever huge liability exists, we go to the outside. Your net fuel costs, you're taking your DEF and your diesel. Even at today's prices, I've been very pleased, and I think Bill has also on the CNG side. The loss in miles per gallon, we're both very conservative when we go and justify our projects. We've been pleasantly pleased at that the losses have not been as high as we expected. And then we align with third-party carriers. We have I think a pretty significant investment on our in-house fleet between what we're putting on the road this year and next year. And in good conscience, we couldn't go and ask other providers to support us if we're not doing it ourselves. So, we took the leap of faith this year, and it's worked out well, both internally, and NFI is our only partner right now on the outside. Closing statement, if anyone is interested and is, we're looking for partners. We're looking for partners, especially on CNG, because a fueling station starts off at $1 million. A propane station you could put on your site for $60,000. But sometimes the better answer is CNG. And between third-party maintenance and the fuel companies, our fleet, we're not UPS, we're not FedEx. We don't have 200-300 trucks domiciled in a location. We have 20, 30 trucks. And that doesn't provide you any leverage. And that's what is disenchanting when people go and start to dabble into the alternative fuel arena is, your hands are locked with the fuel providers and the third-party maintenance. So we're actively looking for partners to join up with us in locations where we can anchor a station somewhere. Collectively, we would get the benefits of a different price. It's not the price that's on the pump. And as far as maintenance providers, especially where they don't already have a certified CNG maintenance facility, we give them, between us, a higher quantity of trucks. It eases the pain on everybody, and it really is the way of the future.
Great. Do you want to flip to the last slide there real quick?
Sure.
Thanks so much, Gary. I know we're tight on time. I wanted to kind of wrap up and kind of tell everybody, again, what I think the takeaway here is and what I heard. And again, trucking maybe isn't the sexiest thing in the world, but there's some really amazing and interesting things that are going on in this sector that you as freight shippers and cargo owners can actually benefit from, because as you learned from Bill, they're implementing, and Gary, they're implementing operational strategies like driver training. They're implementing technologies like low rolling resistance tires and alternative fuels, which reduce carbon and emissions, and operational practices like working to co-load or do other things that save emissions. And through the SmartWay program, they're generating data. You saw those emissions factors that Bill showed that gets rolled into a reporting process where companies that hire these efficient firms can actually learn ways that you can reduce your environmental footprint by working with greener, cleaner carriers, reducing that Scope 3 footprint, and then everybody wins. So that's the one takeaway I hope that you get from this. Do we have time for